Chris Mannix, senior NBA writer for Sports Illustrated, set to join us. Chris, let me start with, we'll get to the Lakers and some of this other stuff here in a moment, but I want to ask you about, teams not showing up in the playoffs, and then they say, well, we just didn't have effort last night. What do you make of that when you hear that excuse?
Zeroing in on the Sixers, right? Like, Embiid, you can explain. Like, he's got a broken face. And every time he gets touched in that face, it clearly causes him an incredible amount of pain. So I think that's why he wasn't the physical player we're used to seeing throughout most of the season, because, he starts banging down there and the pain ratchets up, and it's a lot of pain to be in. Have a broken orbital bone, even with a mask on. The guy you can't understand and can't explain is James Harden. Like, what is James Harden doing? Like, what is James Harden at this point? He teased us in game 4, Dan, with that 31 points. He was playmaking. He looked like the James Harden of old in that game 4. And then he comes out against Miami in game 5 and is a complete no-show. Like, I don't know what I can to expect from James Harden every single night. And that's frightening for the Sixers, not just going into this elimination game, but then going into the offseason, because you got to pay this guy. Yeah. And you got to tie yourself to him for maybe $250 million over the next 5 years. Like, it's really frustrating watching James Harden play that well in game 4 and then be completely overwhelmed in game 5. That tells me James Harden is a really diminished version of the player we saw in Houston. 3 of these 5 games, he has gone under 20 points. That can't happen if you want to be a max player in this league.
Okay, but why does Philadelphia have to then spend $250 million on a guy who is going to provide diminishing returns?
Okay, but what are you going to do? What's the alternative? If he can get, like, all it takes is one bonkers team out there to give James Harden an offer in the offseason, and he could disappear for nothing. And that would leave you with no Ben Simmons, but no James Harden.
Would they be a better team without him, though, Chris?
I would have said so. No is the short answer, because he walks away. It's not like you create all this flexibility to go out and sign somebody else. Like, your options got severely limited when you traded all those assets to get him. Not only giving up Ben, but Seth Curry, who was great, the 2 first-round draft picks. You're limited, Dan. Like, there's only so much you can do. Now, they have to hope that they can, that there's some negotiation there. James has that, I think it's $47 million in the player option last year of his contract. I'm sure he doesn't want to opt out of that unless he's guaranteed. It's almost like a Chris Paul situation, right? Where Chris opted out, but he got the 4 years, $120 million on that deal. Like, I think the Sixers got to hope that James Harden comes to the table with a realistic mindset of what he's worth, that he's not worth that $277 million total that he could potentially get on a new deal, that there's some kind of middle ground that they can all agree to where the Sixers can stomach these diminishing returns.
Chris Mannix covers the NBA, senior writer for Sports Illustrated. Ja Morant probably not going to play tonight against the Golden State Warriors. Your assessment of the play by Jordan Poole, was it called correctly?
I think it was called correctly. And when I've talked to people around the league about Jordan Poole, like, he doesn't have this reputation for playing like that. It was a weird play, but it's hard for me to get to the place, Dan, where in that split second where Jordan Poole is double teaming Ja Morant, he reaches over and pulls on the knee that's been bothering Ja Morant for so long. I just can't get there. Like, I don't know what was going through his mind in that moment. I think going for a steal, or even, trying to be a little bit sneaky, be physical, grab something to try to get to that ball, was going through his mind. But I can't get there where it was some kind of play where Jordan Poole was trying to hurt Ja Morant. I think it was just bad luck. Bad play, but bad luck for the Grizzlies and Ja Morant.
Lakers don't have a coach yet. Who are they waiting for?
I don't know. There's a lot. Try to get a read in the Lakers. there's a lot of Mark Jackson talk that's out there right now. I'm not really buying that because I don't think that Rob Pelinka wants to hire Mark Jackson. I don't know which direction they're going to go. They want a veteran coach. I know that. I don't know which veteran coach is out there. Quinn Snyder, he had his end of the season availability earlier this week and didn't exactly confirm he'd be back. Yeah. Wasn't there. And I think Quinn Snyder would rocket towards the top of the list if he became a coaching free agent. He's got the relationship with the Buss family from his time coaching in South Bay, and he's not a championship coach, but an established coach. So I think Quinn Snyder would be up there, but I don't think they're very close to making that hire. I mean, Dan, did you read Plaschke's column with Jeannie Buss this week? Did you look at that? Did you hear what Jeannie said in that column?
No.
Well, it was interesting. She's basically admitted to fielding all this advice from all the people we thought she was fielding advice from Magic Johnson, from Phil Jackson, to having unflinching faith in this front office. It was wild because, my biggest criticism of the Lakers, Linda Rambis, Kurt Rambis, the people there, like my biggest criticism of the Lakers is that they are the marquee franchise in the NBA and they are being run like a mom and pop outfit, that they are not going out there and looking for the best and the brightest. Like Kurt Rambis has decades of experience in the NBA, but almost none of it is good experience. Like his years as an NBA coach were not successful. And to be taking advice from Phil Jackson, who was an excellent coach, but a horrifyingly bad general manager, like is wild. Magic Johnson quit on the team and is still lobbing grenades at the team from the first take desk. Like, I just don't understand. Like, this is an organization that has the resources to go to Oklahoma City and say, here's a blank check. Here's one of those Publishers Clearinghouse checks, Sam Presti. You fill in the number. And saying, Sam, you run our organization. Now, I don't know if he'd take it. I kind of assume he would because it's the Lakers. But they won't do it. And I don't understand that. Like, if you're going to look for why the Lakers can't work their way back into championship contention, it's because they keep making these bizarre decisions that empower Kurt Rambis, that involve Linda Rambis in an interesting way, that involve Rob Pelinka's. He said this. Rob Pelinka's basketball operations staff includes two members of the Buss family, not even Jeannie, two other members of the Buss. I just don't get it. I don't get why, if you're the Lakers, you're not operating more like the Clippers. Like, you look at the Clippers front office, Lawrence Frank's a basketball lifer, but he's surrounded by really smart guys, whether it was Michael Winger, Trent Redden, even bringing in my good friend Lee Jenkins to play a role in that front office. Like, they're just operating. The Clippers operate like a functional big market franchise, and the Lakers operate like something else. And I don't really understand why.
Yeah, those are great points. You start to look at this, and we want to blame Russell Westbrook for last year. Okay, you can blame him. What about all the other years where you didn't do anything other than you won the title in the bubble? I mean, this is a decade. Going back to Kobe, where you got to go out and see Kobe, and that was it. They become a losing franchise, which is amazing to be. They're almost like the Dallas Cowboys in a sense that they're so popular, we keep waiting for them to win, or the Yankees. Every year, Yankees haven't done anything. Cowboys haven't done anything. The Lakers haven't done anything except for the bubble title.
And people think I praise Danny Ainge too much sometimes, but like, Danny Ainge would have traded Kobe in a heartbeat. Danny Ainge would have let Kobe walk or whatever. He would never have allowed those last 2 years to take place where it was just the Kobe show. And that, like you said, that was it. I just don't understand it. Like, this is, like, Lakers fans don't want to hear this either, but you overpaid for Anthony Davis. Like, you had leverage, because AD only wanted to go to LA and you gave up the store to go get Davis. I just don't understand it. Like, this is, I appreciate Jeannie Buss, respecting loyalty and wanting to keep that inner circle tight, especially when it's filled with like a Laker legend like Magic and Phil Jackson's got a lot of equity within that organization. But, you've got to put all that aside. You've got to hire the very best and empower the very best to do that job. That's not what the Lakers are doing. And ultimately, if this team doesn't succeed in the next 3 or 4 years, that's probably going to be the reason why.
Enjoy the game tonight, Chris. Thanks for joining us as always.
You got it, Dan.
Chris Mannix, pretty strong opinions there.